Hi everyone. For today's video, I'd like to compare my two Furby fakes, Foobie and Gowie. Overall, you can see that they are very similar in shape and size, and on the inside, they're pretty much identical. I have never skinned my Foobie, but I skinned my Gowie for some minor repairs and gluing together some broken plastic a year or so back. And I've seen pictures of naked Foobies, and they basically look the same, although there are some slightly different, like, wiring and stuff. And the most obvious thing, like, electronically, is that Gowie here speaks French, while Foobie speaks English. Although my Foobie did come from Italy, there doesn't really seem to be any Italian-speaking Foobies. So I believe the only two languages for this model of Furby fake are English and French. Now, there are a few different kinds of Gowies. I don't know their names exactly. I think mine is sort of like a bear or a fox or something. Not all Gowies have this, like, fabric mouth. A lot of them do have beaks that are identical to Foobie's beak here. This silly, like, butt chin mouth he's got going on. Also, their ears are much different in shape. Although, again, this particular skin of Gowie is not, like... it's not what all of them look like. There are a few different models of Gowie which have ears that do look a lot more similar to Foobie's, but my Gowie so happens to have these sort of long, pointy, skinnier ears, while Foobie has like these wider, tall ears. They both have very large ears overall. They're much bigger than, say, a Furby's ear, but we'll do a Furby comparison in a different video. So taking a closer look at Gowie's mouth here, it is entirely covered with fabric, but I believe the underneath of it is plastic. It feels very much like plastic underneath there. And he's got this plastic tongue, which I thought was fabric when I saw him first. I thought maybe his tongue was made out of fabric too, but it is plastic. And the tongue sensor does work like normal. This nose here, you can see it looks a little bit frayed, a little messed up. I actually believe that this is literally just a, like, maybe like a small piece of, like, fur fabric. Like, if I pull this back, you can almost see the backing of the fabric there. It is quite literally just glued onto the snout. It looked like this when I got him. I have not messed with it much. Sometimes I sort of press it with my fingers to re-sculpt it into shape, because it is just, like, it looks like some fur fabric that they just shaped to look like a nose. It is quite interesting what they decided to do with that. And then again, Foobie's mouth is just the standard Foobie beak here. I remember when the fandom thought that Foobie's mouth would open sideways because of this funny little crease here, but it does open like a normal Furby's, except it's much more wide, and he has that tongue in there that fits perfectly inside his mouth. Now, all Foobies have, like, wings. Like, these look like penguin wings. Like, honestly, Foobie looks like a little, like, cat penguin or something, honestly. And he's got these cute little paws. Although mine's Pelt is quite lopsided, as you can see with the feet lining up on the bottom there. His wings are quite lopsided, too. He's all messed up. He came that way. He was brand new. And Gowie, my Gowie here, he's got these little, like, pom-pom arms. They're quite cute, I think. He really reminds me of, like, a little teddy bear. I remember someone called him Teddy Ruxpin Furby. I thought that was a really cute comparison, too. And his little feet here, he's got these little, like, little teddy bear-looking paws. I honestly find the overall design for Gowie to be quite unique and adorable. Oh yeah, in the back here, he's got a bear tail, too. It's quite squishy and plush. And unlike Foobie, Gowie actually has a tag. Now, it's in French, so I'm not sure if you can read that here. I believe it's just, like, material information, and this must be just, like, a warning for small parts. Sorry, the tag's a little creased there. I'm gonna have to try to flatten it out later. And on the back of Foobie, he has a much more similar tail to a Furby, like that little pom-pom floof going on here. And, of course, the hair is similar too, although it's much shorter than a Furby's, but we're not comparing to a Furby this time. I believe the fabric on the back of the ears is essentially the same, It's this sort of minky fabric. It's not the same fabric you'd find on an original Furby. It's just like this short, soft minky. And then the front, I don't know exactly what sort of fabric that is. It's much more similar to Furby fabric. And they both do have the buttons in their ears. If you don't know, Foobie has buttons in each of his ears. And they both have buttons in their ears. And they both do not like having their ears pinched. So they will say that they don't like it, that they don't feel good when you press their ears. I'll show you their functional differences once I actually get them turned on, but first here, I'm going to show you their eyes. Their eyes are quite similar, although Gowie's eyes are much like paler blue than Foobie's here. Foobie's got more vibrant blue in his eyes, and Gowie's are much more gray. Now I believe that all Foobies have the same eye color and all Gowies have the exact same eye color as all the other Gowies or all the other Foobies or whatever. So, yeah. And their eyelashes, Foobie's eyelashes are much longer than Gowie's, and they're also much softer. I don't want to touch them too much because I don't want to make them fall out or anything, but Foobie has soft eyelashes while Gowie's are much more like bristly, like more like a hairbrush or something. And their faceplates. Well, it does appear like Gowie doesn't have a faceplate, although he does. It's just underneath the fur. This fur here is quite actually just like glued to the faceplate. Although they didn't really do a horrible job. It looks quite smooth and clean the way they glued that on there. Nothing like, say, a Furby who's just very lazily hot glued the faceplate to the skin. This is much more of a clean job, I think. And Foobie here has a more Furby-like faceplate where it's actually sewn to the skin. Although it's hard to see on camera, there are some gray stitches in there. And on Foobie's faceplate here, you can see this black translucent piece of plastic. And you'd think maybe they'd have like a infrared sender and receiver, much like a Furby does. But instead, there is actually only a light sensor in here. Actually, I can show you if I get my flashlight turned on. So, right there, it looks like there are 3 things, but there's only actually really one. This thing in the corner here is just a screw, while this here is an empty space. And in the middle is the infrared. No, not infrared. I mean light sensor. I'm so silly. You look at Gowie and you think, oh, there must not be a light sensor in Gowie. There's just fur covering the entire forehead here. Well, you would be wrong to make that assumption because Gowie has a secret. He does, in fact, have a light sensor. It is just covered by the fur. It's this very, honestly upsetting looking just hole directly in the middle of the forehead. It's just, they cut a hole in the fabric. It quite literally looks like they just like sliced down the middle of it and then glued it on because you can see the fabric, especially at the bottom here, sort of coming apart. It's quite bizarre, I think, but I'll show you. There is definitely a light sensor in here. If I can get my camera to focus. Right there. And it does work too. So they both basically do all the same things, except Gowie speaks French while Foobie speaks English. Although I'm going to show you their functional differences just in a second here. So if I turn them both over, you can see that the bottom of them is pretty much identical. There's the only obvious difference is that Gowie is a lot more scratched up. I did buy him used, which is probably also why he's not quite as soft as Foobie. Although their fur textures are pretty similar, Foobie is a lot more noticeably softer. I'll get done with the chit chat here and actually just turn these guys on, starting with Foobie here. So just get them far enough apart so their ears don't run into each other while they're talking. Right, so here's Foobie.
Hello, my name is Foobie. I like to play. Please do not howl.
Right, so that's how Foobie powers on. And here is Gowie now. And now I believe they are actually essentially saying the exact same thing, except Gowie's speaking French. I think most, if not all of their phrases are pretty much identical to each other. So I can tickle them here for you. And, yeah, Gowie obviously doesn't talk for that phrase, he just laughs. Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that the phrases are pretty much the same. Let's move on to the pet sensor. Oh, I think I might have accidentally activated his sound sensor. It's quite sensitive. Oh wait, never mind. I think the nana 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 phrase is the pet sensor. Oh. Maybe it was the microphone. Because... oh my goodness, this is not going as planned. That is a phrase from the microphone. I can activate Foobie's microphone by just like shutting his mouth. Oh my goodness. Sometimes they usually sing when you activate their microphone. Goodness, I'm trying to compare each phrase, but they're not cooperating today. Come on, pet sensor? Oh my goodness. Okay. Gowie? Yeah, there they go. Saying okay again. Personally, I do prefer Gowie's voice over Foobie's. Just because Foobie's voice sounds a lot more edited. Like, it's a little bit obnoxious how much it just sounds like somebody's voice pitched up a couple octaves. While Gowie definitely does sound like there's some filters over it, but it sounds much more just like a person talking in a sort of cutesy high-pitched voice than it does a weird voice filter put over someone's voice. Oh, and you've probably noticed by now, Foobie's eyes open quite wide. That's actually not, that's not something that happens with all Foobies. I've only seen it in a few. It does seem to be a pretty common, I don't know if I'd call it an issue because it doesn't really affect how they work. There's just supposed to be a piece of plastic that stops the eyes from opening all the way, and it must just be missing or misplaced for some models. And they're gonna go ahead and talk to themselves now while I'm trying to explain stuff. I believe they both play only one game. They play hide and seek. I haven't finished demonstrating their sensors yet. They have light, sound. I think I pretty much demonstrated sound already. Tickle, pet, and then their ear sensors. There's something quite peculiar about the ear buttons. When you press Foobie's ear buttons, he says stuff, obviously. He does not like it when you pinch his ears.
I don't feel good.
So this is the no good ear, and this is the I don't feel good ear.
No good. No good. I don't feel good.
But when you press the ears on Gowie, he will actually animate to the voice clips, unlike Foobie. Oops. Oh, I almost accidentally... It looks like I've accidentally activated hide and seek mode for Foobie. Gowie can do the same, if I could show that real quick. No, but first you interrupted me. I wanted to say that when I was looking inside Gowie, I noticed that there are... I believe the wiring is different in Foobie and Gowie. There's like two wires that look like they've been cut. I don't know. There's a couple things that are wired differently. Obviously, first is the ear buttons are wired differently because one spins the motor and the other doesn't. But another thing that's actually different is the on-off switch on Foobie and Gowie. When you turn off... he's not going to come out of hide and seek. When you turn off Foobie, he just shuts off. Like, just completely shuts off. Everything is turned off. Although when you turn off... Hi. His tilt sensor is quite sensitive. And his sound sensor. I'm sorry, buddy. When you turn off Gowie, I'm actually going to turn him off while he's still moving, so I can show you especially. So that was me turning him off. As you can see, he continued talking and moving, which I found quite odd the first time I turned him on. I believe he's saying goodbye or goodnight or something along those lines. Neither Foobie or Gowie actually have a sleep mode, which is probably why they implemented an on-off switch in both of them. They do have a phrase where they like snore and go to sleep, but they actually only stay shut off for like about a minute before they say good morning and continue talking again. And then from that point on, if you keep leaving them alone without switching them off, they will essentially just keep going through like an infinite loop of saying goodnight and then saying good morning again. It's quite strange. But yeah, I do find it quite odd the way that the on-off switch and the ear buttons are wired quite differently in each Foobie and Gowie. Sometimes, especially if Gowie is on low batteries, if you turn him off and he stops in the middle of moving the motor, he will actually correct his position like 5 or 6 minutes later after you turn him off, which quite caught me off guard the first time that happened. Like, he just suddenly started moving like forever after I turned him off. It was quite strange. And speaking about how they are wired, something I actually found out about both Foobie and Gowie, and I'm going to demonstrate it in Gowie first here. By the way, I meant to say Foobie, because he's a little bit more cooperative when it comes to battery stuff. It's just because Foobie Gowie had some rust, which is pretty much all been taken out, but it's still a little bit finicky when it comes to batteries. But here is Foobie's battery compartment. There are 4 batteries in here, quite similar to Furby. But what's weird is that these 3 batteries seem to be wired to run the motor, while this 4th battery seems only to drive the voice box. So if I take out this last battery here, what you'll realize is that Foobie still turns on. Except he won't speak anymore. He will only move. And he'll still respond to all of his sensors the same. Well, I'm not sure if it's exactly the same, but he sure is moving his motor. And I can turn him off in the middle of a movement and he won't keep moving, unlike Gowie. So, if Gowie will cooperate, I can show you that he does the exact same thing. If I pop this last battery out and switch him on, he will move and not speak. You could hear his motor turn on for just a split second right when I turned him off there. The way that I found this out was actually because one time when I went to put in the 3rd battery into Gowie, he just immediately started moving. And it was quite off-putting. But then the second I put in the 4th battery, he blurted out like 1 syllable. And I was like, huh? I thought that was quite strange. So I tried just taking out one battery, that one battery on the far right here. And yeah, it appears to drive the voice box. Quite strange. Now, I'm actually wondering if this works in reverse too, like if you only have the last battery inserted, if he will only speak. I don't think this will work, but I'd like to try anyways. Try it with Foobie first, because Gowie, again, is quite finicky when it comes to batteries. So we're going to try it with Foobie here. I don't believe much is going to happen, personally, just because I believe the interactions are a result of these 3 batteries. So I don't think that only leaving in this one is going to make him only talk, but I guess we'll see. Yeah, that appears to do nothing. So, quite expected, but it's still an interesting thing. You can basically just have your Foobie on mute, or your Gowie. Yeah. Yeah, and that's pretty much all I have time for in this video. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below, and subscribe if you'd like to see more, videos of, the guys, the